That intro is
nice!
10 is an indie platformer. To my understanding, it is the developer's first game. Players are to face a challenging gauntlet of pain, to which I assure there is a mental pain that comes with this game, because it is one of those ones where you will die, and die, and die. Simply speaking, there are 10 areas and 10 dangerous rooms in each, all of which you had to survive 10 seconds. The only instance where this changes is with boss fights, where you are challenged with surviving even longer than 10 seconds. But just how challenging is the game, and can such a simple concept make for a thrilling experience? In my opinion, absolutely. Before breaking apart 10, be aware I will be treading into spoiler territory. If you want a gist of the game without plot exposure, click my link in the description to watch The Borg's trailer of the game. Do that anyway after watching, because it's a good trailer that really encapsulates the experience you'll have. Now, as you're watching gameplay, you may draw some comparisons, like I have, to titles such as Celeste, Super Meat Boy, VVVVVVV, or Cuphead. I did so for the reason that it's one of those games where even if I fail multiple times, I don't get bored of going through the same room and just trying again. This is part of where the game gets its charm, which is being a tough-as-nails platformer. If you've heard of the game N+, a selling point in one of its trailers is literally the words, die and repeat. Usually any sense of repetitive loss in a video game is, at some point, excruciatingly painful on my little gamer brain. But games like this make death this thing where, when it happens, I just become more and more addicted. I know I'm not the only one who enjoys games like this. I mean, look at Geometry Dash.
Guys, I just completed the Super Mega Demon difficulty level after dying 10,000 times, and all I want is more.
Now, I died a lot in my playthrough of 10, but reflecting on how that affected my experience, it was a positive one. Each death was either a repeated, justified mistake, one that I was determined not to make and learn from, or it was a completely new one that surprised me and made the game more interesting. You're given 2 difficulties to play through, which I recorded through easy mode to completion. What you're watching right now is the harder mode, which modifies the rooms to be more difficult. You probably guessed that. That's not to say easy mode didn't present a challenge. What's more is that players have control over just how challenging their experience is. There is a skill tree with abilities that bolsters gameplay, all of which cost coins you obtain throughout each area's 10 rooms. One of the skills puts additional coins in each room, enticing you to challenge yourself and make risky maneuvers. Of course, if you're someone who just wants to complete the game, you have the option of just getting through and playing it safe. To an extent, there's even a way to farm coins. Usually when you die, all coins obtained in that attempt will disappear. However, let's say you started your attempt with 15 coins, obtained 25 along the way, then decided to go back to that area's safe house and buy a power-up before going to the boss. Even if you die during finishing that attempt and have to restart the area, that power-up you bought will not go away, so it's sort of a forgiving factor for players who want to complete the game whilst mitigating risk, yet want the enjoyment of affording skills. Overall, this is a game for people who want a challenge, and I'd vouch that you'll have fun with this one. 10 runs smoothly. My only complaint, which this barely hindered me, was that on occasion jumping into the ceiling when there was an object there would sometimes teleport my character back to the floor. When I became aware of this, it sort of modified how I played, but did not ruin the experience. Even if that is a flaw, it's not one that will make or break the fun of it all. What I presumed to be a glitch wasn't even a consistent one, and after it happened, I never encountered any problems the rest of the way. Plus, there was never a reason for me to usually jump into the ceiling. I never felt overpowered or too weak while playing either. I wondered whether or not this would happen because with skill trees can come a skill that just makes everything a cakewalk. However, the cooldowns were reasonable, and even if there was an arguably overpowered ability, you're still challenged with having situational awareness and realizing when the appropriate time is to use such an ability. It's conceptually similar to how in Doom, you acquire many weapons and abilities. It kind of becomes hard to know when one or the other would be more appropriate. Thankfully, 10 is not that complex, and the time it takes for you to grow accustomed to a new mechanic should not take too long given how straightforward all of them are. I was just mentally challenged, and having never talked so much while playing a game, humorously found myself unable to react appropriately at times, which was completely fine and simply my own ineptness. Another worry was that when I didn't have any skills, the game would be too hard. But the game seems to take this into consideration, only exposing you to default enemies that will be prevalent in all future areas. The Borg holds off on throwing newer stuff into the mix until you've had time to acquire some skills. There's definitely a balanced skill system, tied in with simple controls and an array of enemies that will take some getting used to, but never will seem too ridiculous. Well, okay, wait. I want to diss the turrets that stay locked onto you, though. They were a nuisance for me in hard mode, which I guess that makes sense since it's hard mode. Moving on, the thing I did not expect was some of the plot thrown at me. Yes, thank you, Bago. Here comes some story spoilers. With the game's simple concept comes a big mystery, which the pink clones of yourself will be sure to emphasize as they ponder the meaning of life and what lies beyond these hellacious death rooms. The game's initiative starts with the title screen prompt, Break Free. This is how you start the game. You break out of a glass chamber after a mystery narrator speaks of a new one waking up, hopefully producing a different result, whatever that result may be. When you break free of your chamber, the welcome message welcomes you to Sisyphus, addressing you as number 1010. This is where you'll pick up on the hint that you're a clone. As for the word Sisyphus, it can be seen as the name of some sort of experiment, but the big question is, what for? And leaves you wondering what result the narrator is expecting you to produce from this said experiment. Reading further, you were told the world is a cold and unforgiving place, which if I had attempted big-braining the meaning of this, probably could have come to the theories that you're drawing now. Obviously, you're hidden from the world, and by the end of overcoming whatever adversities await you, will be prepared for a problem this whole experiment was preparing you for. Even if you've come this far into the theory, you're left to wonder what awaits you in the outside world. Regardless, the mystery messenger asks that you persevere through their challenges, as if your forced struggles will make for the greater good of humanity. Honestly, that's exactly what you're doing though, saving humanity. It's a cool plot, but the part that surprised me was how the elements of all the areas you play through complement the things you face in the outer world. The plant-based areas, the robotic fish, the flipping dragon named Dragon Fruit, all reminded me of what I was pitted against outside, such as the big monster chasing me, the evil plants, the flying fish. I came to realize the person preparing me for this, whom I can't decide if their name was Alex or Alexander. Maybe they had some nickname thing going on in the messages. But he had prepared you, clone number 1010, for outer forces that he was aware of. Thus comes the genius behind this experiment, which lies behind the final boss on the 10th floor. You are fighting the strongest version of yourself, except it's a clone who was made for the top floor to operate all other floors, while the clone who had made it to the top and previously beaten the former top clone is sent outside to try and achieve what will save humanity. The ultimate objective of this experiment is for a hopefully capable clone to go outside and get to a beacon that, once activated, will eradicate the enemy. It becomes clear that this experiment has been ongoing for a good while. Plus, before going outside, there's many log entries talking about previous experiments that had been run, all attempts at saving humanity in some way. Even if you don't read all there is to read throughout the game, it is easy to suddenly understand your purpose and all that is going on, simply through the interaction with the top floor boss and just the game's end stuff in general. I love the way Borg designed this because it seems to accommodate two types of gamers: the ones who will skim over everything, and the ones who will actively try to understand all that is going on. In either scenario, you could receive the reveal of your theories being right or wrong, or you'll suddenly be given the plot to the game in one boss interaction that just ties everything together. The only irksome part was that you had to skip through that dialogue if you died and had to go back to the boss. But you can avoid that. All you have to do is not die and get good. Now for the music, and if you watch my episodes playing 10, well, I really like the soundtrack. DBXY is responsible for the game's music, which is a 3-man group of musicians and composers. With each room being a 10-second experience, the consideration of having small 10-second tunes was mentioned in their notes for the game's OST. Thankfully, they didn't do that and instead created 2 soundtracks for each area that would complement what the player was currently experiencing. If the game was trying to kill you, the music would become more intense. If it wasn't, then it wasn't as crazy. They labeled their versions of the songs as the heavy or calm, which is very appropriate. I love that there is a jukebox at the title screen. I also like the bestiary that includes animated artwork and character descriptions. What I wish was included is that the jukebox showcased sound effects. I remember when I played Kirby Squeak Squad on the Nintendo DS, and they had a jukebox that not only included music, but all sound effects in the game. Moving back to the song's heavy and calm versions, here's one of my favorite examples of the music having two variations. The producers did well with the music, and the rock aesthetic mixed with synth elements really complements the vibe I feel this game was trying to achieve, that being an intense one. The game's color scheme is similar to Binary Star Infinity's, which I reviewed in my first Afterthoughts episode, though this game uses a few more colors and for good reasons regarding visual haptics. An easy example would be the orange enemies, which represent the enemy being in a passive state. When an enemy flickers red, you should prepare to avoid it, otherwise you'll suffer damage. I think the design was smart. If there had been too much color in the game, it would have been harder to pick up what was dangerous and what wasn't the whole time. 10 really seems to take into consideration the type of game it is, and what it could do to make an avid enjoyer of its genre get the most out of it. If you try this game, let me know your thoughts. I plan on keeping an eye on the board and will be linking the developer's media in the description. Those are all my thoughts, I think. And if you like dying a lot in games, well, give this one a run. Have a good one.